The Old School is brought to you by Ahart Solutions, which provides school surveys and applied research. More information at ahartsolutions.com.
What? Good evening and welcome to the Old School Podcast, a podcast about a host of things, not least of which education, history, culture, sports, philosophy, theology. We run the gamut here. And with me in that endeavor is my very good friend, Dr. Stephen Bourgeois. Good morning, sir. Or
Um,
good evening.
Good evening, whatever the hell it is. Oh my God, I keep getting I'm involved in a group text, Ross, and you started it. You're to blame for this. And I selected the message. I deleted it. I
Just
tried to block you, but then I keep getting. And if anybody responds, I'm still there. As soon as I get
there's
up.
there's a very easy way to relieve yourself of the stress, and that is simply to turn the phone over, set it down, and don't worry about it.
Well, I don't like getting group texts. I've made my position public, and then properly you said one that can't be stopped. And so and everybody responds, and I don't know what's happening, and I don't know any of those numbers. I know your wife is on it, right?
Yes.
And and then there's the two of us, and then numbers I don't even know. So I don't know who's responding. I've lost it, and the text.
There have been times where I have removed there's been times when I've removed myself from group text, so I know it can be done.
Well, I'm surprised that you included me in one after all I've said. And you're laughing now. You're like enjoying um, because everybody else is responding. I'm trying to find ways to block it or delete it or something. Um,
I will help you drop out of it here after we're done here. Just
okay.
settle down.
Well, I can't really do a podcast when I keep getting these text messages.
Well, that's when you put the phone away. Why you got your
I
phone next to
turned it
you
over.
anyway during a podcast?
It just buzzes every time. I mean,
Well, if you put it on silent, then it doesn't buzz.
it is on silent, kind of. No, it buzzes. Either way, I need to get buzzed myself or something because this I never thought it would come from you, a group text of all people here, Miller.
I did it without thinking about it, but now I must admit to having a bit of fun with it.
You are. Yeah, tell them to stop.
Anyway, what are you doing? How you doing?
I'm good. We're meeting at the end of a busy work day. I'm in the middle of a grant proposal, and so there's a little multitasking going on, but I'm excited because we're finishing up a day, and you agreed to meet a little bit earlier. So that as soon
Yes.
as we're done with this, I'm going to cook some steaks, and it's going to be good. And I think if we would have met at 7, I would have been a little tired, and now I'm pretty chipper.
So when you cook steaks, do you cook and do you typically eat particular kinds of steaks, or is it as long as it's red meat, it doesn't matter?
So we're not the Millers where we get a bunch of ribeyes or something, whatever happens to be in the fridge. No, we've had decent steaks. This one is a little bit more like fajita meat, whatever it is. It's going to taste good because I'm going to put my signature spices, meaning salt and pepper, and a little bit of garlic, and that's it. And and then put it in a cast iron skillet that's already hot, so they heat up the oil and get a bit of a sear, and then cook it relatively quickly for this type of meat, and
Yeah.
put it inside of burritos, tubular type things, and eat it with a little bit of cheese. Not street tacos. We're going for kind of burrito tonight.
Okay. Now, how do you cook your steak? Are you a medium rare, a rare guy? What is your preferred level of doneness?
I kill all of my meat. I burn it. I do all kinds of things to make sure that it's cooked enough. But no, with a good steak, I mean, when I order steak in a restaurant, I'll cook it medium. I probably
Okay.
a little past medium when I cook at home, but um, yeah,
Is
anything.
it because you're worried about what's in the steak?
I don't want to taste the redness and the, that I like it. I like my steak to have given up the ghost. And that's why my preferred meat would be something like ribs, where you break it down by smoking it for a very long time. Um,
Right.
and steak can be really great, or it can be a little bit tough.
Shoe
Um,
leather.
exactly. And so I've had a lot of luck though with this cast iron. And whenever you try to grill a steak outside, it goes to the system where you dry it out. That's the problem of grilling steak.
Well, doesn't it depend on the temperature?
It does. Yeah, but you need to be pretty skilled to get the temperature high enough or low enough or whatever. But I think doing it in a pan, you have a lot more control. You can get it hot, immediately turn it down, flip it, let it sit in its own juice. And so it becomes I mean, if you go to a good steak place, they're going to cook it in probably flame broil it or put it in a cast iron type thing. But they're not going to bring it outside and cook it and bring it in for you.
Right. Since you are a man of fire and meat, not unlike me, have you ever tailgated? And tailgating, but meaning, have you ever cooked in a parking lot in preparation for a game?
Okay, I thought you meant driving like Mr. Miller does, where you're really close to the people in front of you. I never do that.
What?
No, no, tailgating, I love the concept, but those tend to be really rough crowds often, at the
The
football.
tailgating crowd?
Yeah, they can be. They're playing little games. They're throwing those little what do you call it, where they throw those things into holes?
Cornhole? The
Yeah,
little beanbags?
yeah. So they're throwing footballs around where you could get whacked.
It seems like a fairly jovial crowd. What's your problem with them?
I, you and I did a little tailgating once, and that was fun. But we were like a little bit off the beaten path, and that was you made some hot dogs or something or sausage.
We weren't technically in the parking lot. We were kind of parked down from the parking lot.
Yeah, it wasn't quite
And we were trying to give our guests, we had a couple of guests from the Netherlands, a couple of friends of mine
like ice
and
cold
friends
out.
of
It was really cold.
huh?
Wasn't it
It
really?
was cold. That helps.
It helped.
Well, I mean, it helps in the ambiance, as it were, so
Yeah, I like grilling in the cold, but no, the concept. I'm not um, knocking it by any means. If
okay.
have the opportunity, but some people who do it really set up. I mean, they do it in Oregon. It's quite a scene. I mean, it's a little bit more hoity-toity. They're cooking salmon, and drinking wine. So it's not like what you get here in Texas where you're drinking Shiner Bock and having hot dogs and rum.
Smoking a brisket or something like that.
No, I like the idea, but I still it gets overruled by being around crowds of people who are disorderly by the whole situation. So that would dampen it. I would rather have a tailgate party on my back porch.
Okay. Well, the thing about the tailgating was a potentially rather clumsy segue from our initial discussion about the grilling of meat to sporting events. And as you know, we are in the midst of what is largely considered the largest sporting event in the world, and that is the World Cup.
Ah,
Now, we have on occasion discussed soccer before,
mhm.
primarily when I was in England and then I was in Germany. And when I was in those two places for the purposes of seeing a soccer game, um, we have talked about it. But we've only talked about it from my point of view. I am curious, did you have any fascination with the World Cup, especially as it was in the United States, or we were one of three hosts?
I usually don't make fun of soccer like I do baseball. Uh, the fact that people are running and jumping and kicking and they're not stopping for 90 minutes. I guess they have the break in the middle. You
Right.
have to respect it. They're actually running around and yeah, so that I'm not gonna well, I am gonna make my normal joke that, what is soccer? Well, 22 people run around for 90 minutes and eventually the Germans win. That's
Was
what I
was
know
that
about
a
soccer.
was was that a Woody Allen joke or?
Somebody from Germany told it to me. I thought it was pretty funny. It's German humor, right? And
Yeah, sure.
funny.
Well, they say on average, the average soccer player on the average game will run between 6 to 8.5 miles on average.
Wow,
It depends upon how volatile, how breakneck the action is, but between 6 and 8.5 miles.
it's crazy. Um, and they're loafing around and they're sprinting and they're diving, they're running into each other and then they're recovering. And
Yeah.
they don't like do substitutes. Once you leave, you're done for the game, maybe for your whole life. They pull you out. It's this big ceremony, and like you're done. Everybody waves at you and then you leave.
And
But
you clap over your head to the fans who are maybe cheering for you, maybe not, and then
I never understood that. The same thing in baseball. I mean, why can't you just pull out a pitcher and then bring him back in later, when they've had time to get their breath, they're out for the
because
whole.
there is a finality to sports, and then indeed that's one of the reasons why people like it. It is a offer on proposition. There is nothing in between.
Well, but like take football, there's substitutions all the time.
Sure.
Basketball's the same thing. Hockey,
So
that's so
hockey does it. Well, they have different. Well, hockey's a little bit different in the sense that they have different lines that kind of go out. They go in a kind of a rotating basis. So
so something I don't quite understand about hockey and soccer is that if somebody commits a real egregious penalty, at some point they could be playing 10 men against 9 or 10 players against 9 or 10 against 11, I should say.
right.
For
In soccer, it's 10 against 11. Yes.
yeah, for an extended time. That just seems barbaric. I mean, imagine doing that in basketball. You're playing 5-on-4. So,
Well,
so
you would think as small as a basketball court is, it would be easier to defend against, 4 against 5, given the amount of space that you have to cover. It's not like in soccer where you got 10 against 11 and you got the entire scope of a soccer field to defend.
seems like a really harsh penalty, and sometimes they keep somebody out the next game and they do a public.
Or they don't.
Don't they do like a public flogging of these players if they do something wrong? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's a rough sport. Um,
So how much do you remember? Where were you? What were you doing? How much do you remember about the '94 World Cup that took place in the United States?
I don't remember it at all. I didn't know we had it. 1994, isn't that when we had like O.J. Simpson driving around in his Bronco?
I think it was a couple years earlier, I think, but
No, that would have been the same summer. And
mm,
I don't remember that we hosted it. Was it? I knew that we had the Olympics in Atlanta and somebody had a
that
bomb.
was '96. That was '96, same year.
Yeah, so this happened before that. But no, I don't remember.
Where were you in '96?
I thought we were talking about 94.
Oh, no, is it? Yeah, 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 '94. I'm sorry, '94.
Um,
Yeah, the Olympics were in '96.
I'm not going to
The World Cup
actually
was
tell you.
'94.
I won't tell you where I actually was, but no, I had just moved to Texas. And so that was my first year teaching in Texas. And so that summer, if it was in fact in the summer, I think I came to Texas in August. So otherwise I was finishing my last months in Oregon in 94. But I don't remember anything about soccer at that point.
Well, the World Cup in '94 was
Mm.
perhaps partly awarded to the United States as a country that was trying to get into the game. Now, for a little history here, the first World Cup was played in 1930. It was played in Uruguay in South America. It might interest you to know that the United States finished third in that competition.
Hmm.
They went to the semifinals and they ended up losing, but they made it to the top 3 in 1930, and then they did not sniff the World Cup again until decades later. By the way, Uruguay won that first World Cup. Most of the team that played in 1930, which was a team, by the way, that defeated England 1-0, one of the big upsets of that World Cup. Most of those players came from one of two places. They either came from New York and they were either descendants or of immigrants, or they were immigrants themselves. They came mostly from Italy or Spanish speaking countries. And then the other place was St. Louis. St. Louis had an area still has an area of its city called the Hill, which was the predominantly Italian neighborhood. And so the team that we took to Uruguay in 1930 was primarily made up of players from either St. Louis or New York. And so that was kind of like our first foray. And then we don't sniff it again because, well, there's a lot of things that happened starting in 1930, Depression, World War II. I mean, we had other other things going on, but we finally get back into it. And 94 was supposed to be a kind of a coming out for the United States.
Yeah.
And this is where we have our first stars. This is where we have our first personalities. Some of them are still around. Alexi Lawless, who does a soccer podcast. Stu Holden, which is a broadcaster of soccer games. He did the game today against between France and Spain. And so there are several players from that time period that have gone on to become quite well known in the world of soccer. But it really was not until the 2000s of course, the really bad thing about what happened in '94, the United States defeated Colombia, and it was based upon an own goal. And then the guy who committed the own goal was shot to death back home in Colombia.
Oh, no.
Many people think in part because of what he did in the World Cup match against the United States. So when people think about the '94 World Cup, they think about it as the beginning of U.S. interest in soccer. You also think about his name. His last name was Escobar. I can't remember his first name, but
Sure.
yeah, it was horrible. Um, but it was kind of a coming out party for the United States. And over the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, we start having these amazing players that represented, oftentimes they talk about the new generation or the golden generation, guys like Landon Donovan, guys like Clint Dempsey, uh, these individuals who kind of represented this new age of soccer players. And for the first time, you start to see Americans pop up on European teams. Previously, that was kind of like something that European teams never did. They never took American players. If they did, America, there's a lot of American players that talk about kind of the nightmare that it was being an American playing on a European team. They just got no respect. I mean, you had to be something extraordinary, and those first Americans that went over there were good, but they weren't extraordinary. We now in 2026, we had an amazing team. We had an amazing coach, and we got bounced out in the round of 16 as we have the last. I think that's the round of 16 is the highest that we've gone in the last 3 decades.
And they play Belgium
They played Belgium,
and they folded.
and there was a lot of controversy because we had a guy that was on a red card, and then apparently the red card got reversed, which there is precedent for. The UEFA, which is the governing body of European soccer, sent out this missive talking about the unprecedented. I think either Belgium or UEFA used the word unconscionable, which I think we can come up with a better example of unconscionable than overturning a red card. All you have to do is look at European history, but that was a big controversy. The United States have been playing guns a blazing the entire tournament, and then they got their ass handed to them by the Belgians,
They,
a team
so
that
they
should
got,
not have beaten them that bad.
but that guy got to play,
He
but
got to play, and he was horrible,
ruined their.
and partly because he had not practiced that week because he was not going to be in the game.
Okay, I heard there was something like that. I just watched and it looked like they folded like a cheap lawn chair. Very.
Indeed, they did.
Um,
But I'm kind of curious because because you have told me that you've kind of paid attention to it. So unlike 94, apparently you've been a little bit more engaged than you were certainly in 94. perhaps more so than you have in previous tournaments. Why have you been more engaged, and what kind of things have drawn your attention?
Um, just one team has caught my eye, and that's Norway. And that Greek god that they have who has the hair and it looks like Thor or something.
The
And
Norwegian god, he's not a
the
Greek god.
Norwegian, yeah, he's not Greek, but I mean, I've never seen a human look like that and move like that. He's bigger and stronger and faster and charming and happy all the time and does that rowing thing with the fans and pounds the drum. That was great. That was great theater.
You're speaking of Erling Haaland, who is, he plays for Manchester. What are you giggling for?
I didn't realize he had a name. I didn't think you could actually
Yes.
speak the name.
Well, I mean, he plays for Manchester United. He is 6'5". He weighs like 220, I think, 210, 220. So he's a big boy.
Yeah,
His father played in the English Premier League. And so he comes from, I think his mother was a triathlete or something like that. So he comes from a pretty solid athletic stock.
he was genetically
But
engineered to be a soccer player.
he does look like that, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
So do you think that, because there's a lot of people on television and on these broadcasts that talk about the degree to which Americans have kind of tuned in and gotten involved and gotten interested in soccer, and they talk about it as if it's at a whole new level. And sometimes I think when I hear people say that on TV, I think they're trying too hard to convince me that soccer is the next big thing. And they've been
Oh,
saying soccer is the
it
next big
won't be.
thing for 30 years.
No.
But you were drawn to it.
I was. I don't think I watched the game today, and but I'm intrigued by the different styles. I mean, you get to see these teams that are incredibly aggressive, and they do these very short passes, and they keep the ball. They manage the game control, constantly, and they win everything in the center of the field. So they're always controlling. They contest everything. And then some teams are kind of do the fast break, where they get this opportunity and so they don't need to have control of the ball. They could have it for like 20% of the time, but win emphatically by these incredible athletes in open field. So I like the different approaches to that and you know, I also like the way that the clock runs forward. I mean, you get to see the suspension of time because it really goes slowly. You
Right.
think what can happen in this amount of time, but a lot can. It's the same thing in I mean, they don't have the clock goes down, I think, in hockey, but in 30 seconds, you don't sit on a lead and think, oh, we have 30 seconds, we have this. Anything can happen. And so these plays develop so quickly. So it's one of
Mhm.
those sports where you can't just walk away and go to the bathroom or something. You just have to watch because it just happens in an instant. It's this electric thing and you see the quality of the athletes under incredible pressure at these moments, and that's when
Yeah.
they really come into focus, and so there's this pass and this header, and then the goalie is flying and everything happens, so it's these pregnant moments, very different than baseball in a way, just because it seems to be even faster. You're kind of expecting it, you're waiting for the pitch. But in soccer, you kind of get lulled into a little complacency, and then it happens, and it happens enough that it's not a dull sport. You don't have a lot of 0-0, games. It always happens, and then there's this incredible tension as it goes on, and then the game's not over. Now you have extra time, penalty time, whatever it is, and that goes on. So in that way, it's like tennis, in that you always have a little bit of a chance, and it's never over. And so there aren't really. I mean, I guess there are blowouts, but more often than not, they play it to the end.
I'm not here to rhapsodize about soccer. I mean, I certainly enjoy it, and it has become perhaps my second favorite sport. I mean, nothing will ever top baseball. Although, oddly enough, baseball and soccer do share some of the same criticisms. A lot of people talk about it as being boring, a lack of action, low scoring, things of that nature. And although there are plenty of examples to the contrary, that's the prevailing stereotype.
Mhm.
But I like what you're talking about because it does speak to something that people kind of misread with soccer. And that is just the banding about of the ball from one player to the next. And as you say, what they're doing is it is kind of a lulling to sleep, but they're trying to find the lane.
Yeah,
They're trying to
totally.
find the opening.
Yeah.
And then you go from this thing being bounced around between the same three guys to all of a sudden there's a single forward pass. There's a bolt of action as a guy makes a run towards the goal and he either makes the goal or he doesn't. But it does speak to the kind of athleticism that these players exhibit.
It's incredible. I mean, I will say I hate the idea of penalty kicks. I've been on record on that. It's just like, why don't we just have a golf tournament and then end it by just having a putting contest? It just
But don't I mean, most sports. I mean, you figure basketball has free throws that are basically the equivalent of a penalty shot.
I guess so.
Hockey has penalty shots in it.
But I feel
Soccer
terrible.
does.
I feel terrible for the person kicking and also for the goalie because, they're expected to make it. What do they probably make? About 85% of them. And
Yeah.
and the goalie probably touches about 5% of them, but those times that they do, uh,
Mhm.
it's incredible. So
The
yeah,
pressure is definitely on the shooter.
yeah, yeah. I'm a little bit, I am ambivalent about watching it 'cause it's sort of a false thing. It's very much like the overtime in football. It no longer is gonna guarantee that the better team wins. The team who's a little bit luckier wins that, but they've already shown that the best team is not gonna, define winning in a typical way. So I find it a little bit frustrating, but I also know that it's so exhausting that they can't play 30 minutes and, okay, 30 more. 30 more.
Ah.
You'd have, like, dead bodies lying about, you know?
Now, another element of this World Cup, and perhaps something else that might explain your interest, certainly as you are today, as I would certainly consider you a citizen of the world, you are a student of the world, you're interested in what's going on around the planet, you're interested in other cultures and things of that nature. How much of your interest in either Norway in particular, the Norwegian team in particular, or the World Cup in general has to do with that element of the event, the fact that you have so many different countries, so many different cultures coming together as part of this tournament.
It is unique because so many countries that we would not, I mean, imagine it was, football, professional NFL or basketball, everybody doesn't play them, but everybody does play soccer, so it's sort of you probably have more, people playing soccer than any other sport by quite a bit.
Right.
So they all bring their teams, their different styles, and they all have a chance. And I think that was one of the beautiful things about this year is early on in that early round, some of the smaller, less expected teams won or played really well, and that's exciting.
It's exciting, and that aspect of it is rather unprecedented. There's a couple, so three teams that perhaps people automatically think of that normally would not have a crack at the World Cup. Curacao, which is not even its own country. It's like a protectorate of the Netherlands. Then you had Cape Verde,
Mhm.
the series of islands off the west coast of Africa, and then you had Uzbekistan. Now, Uzbekistan, unfortunately for them, they went out with a whimper, and that is typically what happens when you have a team that does not have a strong tradition of soccer and certainly does not have a strong tradition of being a part of the World Cup. They get shown out for their level of competition compared to some of the other teams they're playing. But against all imaginative expectations, Cape Verde and Curacao, especially Cape Verde, were shocking in how well they played. And I think it added to the excitement of it. But it still goes back to the idea of you have all these different cultures in one place. How much have you paid attention to some of the cultural feel good moments that we've had in the World Cup?
I hear it indirectly. I've never been out wandering around and seeing a bunch of, people from whoever played here. I don't know who played in Dallas. What are the local stories? Do you know who? Well, today there was a game.
There was a game here in Arlington. It was against Spain and France, between
Yeah,
Spain and France. There was about 6 games from the group stage that was played in Arlington, and
yeah.
then I think with each level of the elimination rounds, at least one game was played in Dallas. I think the biggest event that happened in Dallas was what was called the Dutch Parade or the Orange Parade. They have a bus that apparently over the last 20 years have basically made it to every World Cup locale. And then all the fans kind of line behind it and they do this link und lect a dance where they kind of bunny hop one side and bunny hop to the other side, and they got this music playing.
You don't see that every day.
And no, you don't. And it was in downtown. It was in Arlington. It was around the baseball stadiums, and they were basically marching to the football stadium where the Netherlands were playing. I don't remember who they were playing, but
That's great.
it, yeah, it was an amazing moment. Then you have moments like the Scots in Boston,
I heard about
the
that. Yeah,
bagpipes marching into Boston.
they
You
drank
have
drank all the beer in town, didn't they? They drained it dry.
apparently they drank it dry. They drained that swamp. And so you have the Argentinians in Kansas City.
That doesn't
You
sound
had,
normal. You never said that in a sentence before.
yeah, well, someone was telling me about the game that the Argentinians played against. Was it Norway that they beat to move on? No, not Norway. Switzerland. They played at Arrowhead and or Kansas City Stadium. They played at Arrowhead, and they said it was the only time they'd ever seen that stadium filled with a color other than red.
Yeah,
They
it
said
would.
there was like a
Or
couple of ribbons of red for the
yeah.
Swiss fans, but basically the entire stadium was overtaken by Argentinians.
Oh,
You had a
that
couple
light.
of examples.
Yeah,
Say again?
it's a light blue, right?
Yeah, it's a light blue, it's
Yeah.
blue and white striped jersey. I tell you some other groups that really showed out, and that were the Ecuadorians. The Ecuadorians were basically taking over every stadium they were in. I swear half the country was in each stadium where they played. Just this sea of yellow from the colors from their flag. You had the Algerians in Lawrence, Kansas. The Algerians their training camp was in Algeria in preparation for their matches. And the city of Lawrence or the town of Lawrence, Kansas, basically adopted these folks, took care of them, made sure that they had everything they needed. They supported them. The local high school band learned the national anthem of Algeria, probably a couple of notes off key, and just the whole thing that kind of made that a special moment. And then you have examples of soccer fans that started showing up for baseball games because they needed something to do in between the soccer games, and baseball was the only sport going. And so you all of a sudden you start to see guys in kilts at a Red Sox game or at a Miami Marlins game or something crazy like that. And it's really seems to have it's an element of this game that seems to be more so than I've noticed in previous World Cups.
It's amazing hosting it, knowing that they're also watching it on TV and in bars and in stadiums all over the world. And I think I mentioned I was in Geneva watching um, Senegal and Belgium,
Hmm.
and the people in Geneva were rooting heavily for Senegal for whatever reason. But we had these two television sets, and it was an Irish pub. And strangely, the
An
people,
Irish pub in Switzerland
yeah,
filled with Swiss rooting for Senegalese against the
yeah, it
Belgians.
was odd, and the waiters were speaking in English. You know, I thought they'd speak in French or but no, they're speaking in English, and everybody was irate. They didn't seem to like the Belgian. for some reason. And but we had two televisions, one outside and one in, and I was outside, and they were not synced. And so we heard this loud roar, and then I knew something happened, and then we saw in about 15 seconds a goal by Senegal. So half the bar was screaming, and then the other half saw it and started screaming. So it was sort of strange. So I moved inside, so I wasn't behind.
Well, you must be used to that because it seems like every time you and I are on the phone watching a football game, I always get the touchdown like 10, 15 seconds before you do.
Yeah, you're like doing this weird celebration, and I'm waiting for it before it happens. Yeah, I'm always behind. I'll give you that. But the idea that they're paying attention to all of this in the middle of the night or whenever it is, because
Mhm.
they're ahead of us,
Right.
and so that's kind of great. But I think it is really good press for the United States, and they have all these maybe false ideas through the media of
Yeah.
just how bad it is here, and they end up
Mhm.
loving it. And the part that they're probably going to talk about the most, particularly in Texas, is not the heat, but the air conditioning. It's so good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can attest to that being out of the country for a while. I mean, we have the best air conditioning in the world. It's so beautiful, and it's debilitating when you
Yeah.
can't get away from the heat, which is what we experience. Even though it's not as hot as here, it feels
Yeah.
much hotter.
Well, I know you as someone who experienced that scene in Switzerland. I have a very, very good friend of mine who, over the last week, has been in Norway. And so he was at a bar when the Norwegians played England that eventually ended Norway's dreams of
Yeah.
advancing further in the World Cup. But again, it's just this notion of everybody kind of coming together. And and we've talked about this before, the uniting effect that sports has.
Mhm.
And the fact that, I tell you that when I'm in a stadium like a Signal Iduna Park in Dortmund, no one thinks that I'm the American. I'm just a Dortmund fan. And so culture kind of fades away in some degree, distinctions kind of fade away, and you've simply become a fan. And I've always said that I thought that sporting events was perhaps the greatest way that one could connect with the people around you because you're no longer the other. You're no longer the visitor. You're no longer the tourist unless you do something purposefully to set yourself apart. But it's the beautiful thing about sports.
It is. It's sort of this Dionysian experience where you become part of the intoxication, that's surrounding you, and you lose yourself, which is a beautiful thing and needs to happen. But most sports fans are sitting there without irony, you know,
Yeah.
you know, and some of us have trouble not being ironic all the time. I mean, you've heard me at baseball games where I'll just say "ooh, ooh" very quietly when somebody throws to first base, when they don't need to. Little things that are an affront to your sensibility. Why is he? We know he's not trying to throw that runner out. He's just
Mhm.
making a point or buying time. Why do they do that, Ross? Why do they throw to first when it's not really a hard play? Are they trying to lull him to
Just
sleep?
letting the guy at first know that he's aware of them and he needs to be cautious in any attempt that he might have to steal.
It's a strange part of the game because they're playing these little mind games, and then the guy gets farther out, and you know, I guess
It's a game of cat and mouse. It's a game
yeah,
of chicken. Who will blink first? It's
so,
not
so
that
that
strange. It's not that unusual.
so I will give you this about baseball. We'll get back to soccer, but there is a lot of variety of the levels of interest. I mean, it's not just pitcher and batter, and they have their little game, then but it's those things when there's a runner involved, everything gets complicated.
Mhm.
There are different holes open and then you can get a double play. All these variables kind of explode. Anything's possible,
Mhm.
and so soccer is to me, it feels relentless. They're
Mhm.
playing the clock, and it's relatively clear at some point that some team is running out the clock. We all know it, and when they get a corner kick, they're holding the ball, looking at the time, looking at the sky, walking around a little bit, but not too much. and then
Every time the goalie gets the ball, he kind of just
yeah,
lays down on the ground for a second.
yeah, and you have the beautiful things of the faked injury, where people grab their leg, make this face like they've been shot, and then they wait for just a little bit. It's always about a minute and a half. Then they jump up like a gazelle and run off,
Yeah.
and they're playing again. Um, so it's kind of fun, I mean, it's almost this tradition, but they're big on tradition. I mean, the way that they walk out there with the kids, they have
Right.
a kid next to them, and all of
That's
that.
typically in club play, not so much in the World Cup, but
Not in the World Cup, yeah,
no. But I'm wondering to go back to the question about cultural phenomenon with regards to soccer and
yeah.
sports in general, and the unifying effect of it.
Hmm.
Certainly, sports has its ugly side, and it shows up often, and it's reported often, and
Hmm.
so there's no attempt here to try to gloss over some of the bad aspects of sports. But do you think that sport, more than anything else, has the ability to unite people across various divides? You know, whatever divide you want to think of. Do you think sport is uniquely positioned to do that more so than any other phenomenon?
I think the closest thing would be going to war, where
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
about where you're working with people and they just need to do their job. You don't care at that point,
right.
what, where you come from or whatever. But I mean, from the player standpoint, there tends to be this closeness of people you go through a similar experience. And so that's beautiful. The sportsmanship tends to be, consistent across racial lines,
Okay.
also. And then by fandom, yeah, the fans can be, they have a flag,
Hmm.
and so I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's one of the reasons that we watch. And I've said this before, but I like the part after the game. I don't like sports like hockey, where nothing gets hockey in general, but where they don't shake hands until it's like the end of the playoffs or something. And but I think you leave the field of play, you should shake hands every time, and then you move on. But I think they're taking that a little bit too far, and baseball's the same thing. I mean, you finish a World Series, they nobody has ever shaken hands with an opponent in baseball. That's really dumb.
Isn't it? Well, no, it happens. It's
No,
just
it
not
doesn't.
done.
Only when?
Yeah,
Maybe in
yeah,
the
it does.
parking lot, but
Yeah,
never
but it's
publicly on
just
the
not.
field.
It's just not done in a formalized sort of way,
But
the way you
why?
might see it in other sports.
Bunch of jerks, in football, after the game, they shake hands. Basketball, they kind of don't, unless it's the end
Yeah.
of a series. That's stupid. They should do it after you play. Boxing is beautiful. They beat the hell out of each other, then they shake hands and hug, and they're best friends. That's the message that we want to share. And so they're not helping anybody in hockey or baseball by just kind of walking off. They should do the little lines. I mean, what else do they have better to do than do the 2 lines after their game?
Well, they do that in hockey.
Well, at the very end of the
They
series,
just
they should
wait
do it
until
every
after the
game.
the individual playoff series.
Yeah, they should do it every game. Just do the little line. Do it in baseball,
That's
you
too
do it in
much.
little league, and then they're teaching no sportsmanship for the pros. So I think it's a bad message to the kids.
There's 82 games in a hockey season. You're gonna
That's fine.
line up and shake hands 82
It
times?
takes 10 minutes. You're beating the hell out of each other, and you say it's all good. We're playing, but they have this message, and I think it's hurting our country, Ross.
Here's why it doesn't happen at the conclusion of the run-of-the-mill hockey or baseball game,
Yeah.
because ultimately nothing has been decided yet. And so the war continues. The battle will recommence.
Okay.
And, and it's only after, like an example with hockey, it's only after
That's
the end
okay.
of at the end of a playoff series
Yeah.
that now something has been decided.
They don't ever shake hands during the regular season.
No,
Maybe a little even before the game. I mean, basketball, they'll shake hands at the mid-court before, which is great. I like that. But baseball, you tell me, I've asked you this and you gave me no answer. They never have an opportunity to publicly congratulate each other, ever.
it happens informally on the field
No.
after the game.
Oh, I like that.
Maybe not.
I do
Maybe
like
not.
that. I like the
But maybe not
banter.
game. But maybe not game 122. But like after a playoff series is done or what have you, yeah, you'll see shaking hands.
Okay, well, I hope so. I do like the banter between the first baseman, and the first baseman is always kind of an outgoing guy, who talks, gives them heck, and because they take off their gloves or their helmet or whatever, they're sitting there and talking a little bit, and that's cool. It happens a little bit on second base too. But I think we need more of that. More. I
There's
watch.
there's one first baseman they used to joke about, all the their little lines he would do to people who would show up at first, like,
Mhm.
do you have any naked pictures of your wife? Do you want some? So
Wow.
that kind of banter. I like the idea of the banter.
You watch those videos on YouTube where they talk about really good sportsmanship? Like, even in hockey, there are
Yeah.
moments, there won't be a dry eye in the Miller house if you watch that, because it's such a tough sport, but occasionally there are these moments. They have about a reel of maybe 5 minutes, because usually it's pretty contested, but it's a really nice 5 minutes. You should watch it.
Okay. Well, the last semifinal game is tomorrow, England versus Argentina, or the Falklands War Part Deux, happens
Nobody's
tomorrow.
mentioned that before, have they?
Yeah, I talked about the idea of being an announcer for England versus Argentina, saying Argentina's back four is pretty weak, but then again, it was also in the '80s. So,
Oh my goodness.
the idea of the Falklands War Part Deux. I'm going to go ahead and copyright that, and then the final game. Well, there's two more games after that. It'll be at the third place game, which will be France and somebody, and then the final will be Spain and somebody. So
Why did they do a third place game? That makes no sense.
it doesn't,
I mean,
because they don't care. None of Say again,
people will go. I mean, the players don't want to be there. Nobody wants to be
no,
there. They shouldn't
because
hold it.
they just lost within inches of the finish line. They lost,
Yeah, and they have to
and
play.
now they have to play basically an exhibition game.
Yeah, it's a friendly game. I would give them a pass, or they should just play their second string players to give them some experience on the international stage.
You think they should do like a 0-0 tie and then walk off, shake hands?
Anything but play it. Don't play it. It's a bad idea.
All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it, and we hope to hear from you soon, or see you soon, or sometime,
Something.
something
Yeah.
next week where we will be back together. And until that, I shall say adieu, Herr Dr. Bourgeois.
Herr Miller, I have to add that you seem impressed with my soccer knowledge after this.
I am, yeah.
I'm kind of a sandbagger. I actually know a lot more about baseball than you think. I mean, I played as a kid, and I watched a lot
Yes.
of games. But soccer, yeah, I know a little bit. But thanks for putting
Is
up.
that what you tell? Is that what you tell like baseball players when you meet them for the first? I played in elementary school.
Well, I made it all the way through sixth grade before I started getting cut from the team. But anyway, thanks for putting up with my silliness, Herr Miller.
No worries. And audience, thank you so much for putting
Yes.
up with our silliness.
No problem. That's what we do here. Part of the job. Um, all right, Herr Miller. I'll say Auf Wiedersehen.
I'll be saying.